So, the 1300 GS is such an awesome bike that everybody's selling them. And if they are such an awesome bike, why is everybody selling them? Well, you're going to find out in this video. Righto, tellyo there champs. Today I'm going to tell you all the issues with the 1300 GS, and holy crap, there are a heap of them, so stay tuned. Make sure you do subscribe because I have a 1300 versus 900 GS video coming out very soon. I'm going to chuck this in the mix as well, right? So make sure you subscribe for that. But first, we all better gather around in a big circle jerk and pay homage to the mighty shaft. Yes, we pray to this big, long, chunky shaft, yes. And I would like this opportunity to thank the past and present shaft takers from BMW and welcome you to Shaftland. Let's talk about the 1300 GS and all the issues with it. Now, this bike here is a 1250 GS, and I've got to tell you now, the amount of problems that come up when I researched the 1250 GS is eye-watering. You know, leaky brakes, leaky shocks, forks leaking, spokes, shaft issues. Of course, you got to talk about the shaft issues. There's always shaft issues, and yeah, a lot of problems. But me, zero problems, zero. So it doesn't mean when I'm talking about the 1300 GS problems that you're going to have a problem. But I've got to say, when I researched all the bikes, when I was actually buying an adventure bike, a big adventure bike, yeah, the 1300, the amount of time it's been out and how many issues it has, it is, wow, it is just nuts. I'm actually bored. I'm really bored of all the issues coming up, and look, I'm not picking on the 1300 GS. The reason I ended up with this is because BMW look after you, right? I signed on the dotted line for Ducati. I signed on the dotted line for the Tiger, right? The Triumph. BMW have the best warranty. You don't have to fight for warranty issues. They are like the top of the class when it comes to that sort of thing. And in Australia, we get a 5-year warranty. So you guys in the UK, Germany, Europe, I think, and even the US, you better write to your BMW head office and say, hey, come on, those convicts down in Australia, those penal colony men and women, why are they getting 5 years warranty? Now, before I get into all the issues with the 1300 GS, the more disturbing thing is the unhealthy amount that are actually for sale. Now, I would think a brand new model, there wouldn't be any for sale secondhand, right? Well, wrong. We're talking just general for sale on bike sales and dealer used, okay? I really would expect there to be zero, but there are some for sale. But the big disturbing news was that 1300 GS I rode, that was a piece of crap that needs a new gearbox. That bike is for sale, okay? Only done 1,000 Ks, dealer demo, for sale. Now, I actually don't understand how that bike is for sale. I mean, they wouldn't have changed the gearbox by now. There's no way they shipped the gearbox out from Germany and have changed that gearbox. So they're selling it as is. But more disturbing than that was they had a lot of dealer demos for sale in unison. This is really disturbing because the way it usually works with dealer demos is usually they have a set amount of Ks or they keep them for 6 months and then they, you know, update the dealer demo and get a new one. Well, how can it be that the first deliveries of these demo bikes were at the end of January or, you know, early February, and they're selling them already? I looked at the kilometers of all the bikes, all the kilometers were different. These are all dealer demos for sale. Now, of course, these will all be early models. These will all be 2023 models. These are demo bikes for sale. And I know that that piece of crap 1300 I rode, that black one, I know that's getting replaced with a brand new model. But to then see in unison all these dealer models being sold is really disturbing to me because it hasn't been 6 months. They haven't reached this arbitrary amount of Ks to be sold. So why are they selling them all in unison, all these demo models? It makes me think that, you know, people riding that piece of junk I rode will be getting a bad idea of what a 1300 GS is. And I've ridden many GSs, right, of those 1300, and all of them have been good except for one. So unless BMW can tell me a reason why they're all selling them in unison, all these demo models before 6 months is up and with low kilometers on them, I've just kind of come up with the conclusion that they don't want to demo these to the public, and that, you know, they're going to have more issues than it's worth. So let's just get rid of those early models. Let's get in some of the newer models that should be a little bit better, maybe 24 builds. And I've got to just say, that really disturbed me, because if BMW don't think those bikes are any good and they're selling them straight away and they're getting in the newer models, well, what hope have other people got of getting a good one, especially those earlier built models? And if anyone can actually tell me why they would do that, other than, you know, they just want to get rid of them and get new ones in that are hopefully better, well, please let me know down there in the comments. Got to be perfectly honest with you guys, these issues are piling up so much that it's actually a fucking embarrassment to BMW with all these fucking issues. I mean, and if I tallied up all the issues the 1200 Tiger had and the MultiStrada had, and I combined them together over the last few years, they would be nowhere near the amount of issues the 1300 GS has had, and that's only been out for what? Not even 6 months. And even today, when I thought I had all the issues, I had to fucking add more and more. Look, pages full of this shit. Where do I fucking start? All right, let's fucking start. Now tell me, when a new bike model comes out, an all new bike model, it should be comprehensively better than the last model, right? Well, in the case of the 1300 GS, wrong. You can say it's different, you can say it's better at many things, but it's not comprehensively better than the old model. And with that, I've got to bring up the famous quote by Carol Smith, and it's that the last of the old will always beat the first of the new. Now that shouldn't really be the case anymore, right? Because if you're going to talk about the new 900 GS, it's much better than the 850 or the 800 GS. It's like miles better. It's like night and day difference. The 900 GS, it looks better than the 1300 GS. I have never in my life thought that, you know, the 800 or the 850 look better than the 1200 or 1250 GS. Now the 900 looks better than the 1300, which looks more like a street bike. Whereas the 900 GS Enduro, it looks like a tough bit of kit. It looks like old school, but it also looks, you know, tough, rugged, like the, you know, the 1250 Goat here. So let's just start. All right. Well, we know about the engine replacements, the hydraulic leaks, and when we're talking about hydraulic leaks, we mean suspensions. The oil's leaking out of the adaptive ride height suspension. It seems to be the ones with the adaptive ride height have the most issues, okay? A lot of the people that don't have many issues, people that have only had a relay or a battery replaced and have had no other issues, most of those people don't have the adaptive suspension. Now, it is important to note here, I have tons of issues that I'm just about to tell you. It doesn't mean you're going to get these issues. You're probably likely maybe to get one or two. You would have to be fucking unlucky to get all of these issues. So anyway, the hydraulics are leaking, the suspension's leaking, corrosion on the pipes, corrosion after a few months. How long have I had this bike here? No corrosion on this thing. Well, not on the pipes anyway. Gearbox, fucking gearbox issues. Wow. As I told you before, that piece of junk I rode, that needs a gearbox replacement. There have been a lot of gearbox issues, and we're not just talking about it's not operating smoothly like, you know, you would expect a quick shifter or, you know, a modern quick shifter to do. I'm talking about the gearbox is fucked. It doesn't go into gear, it hits neutral and shit like that. Battery issues, starting issues, fucking issues galore, relay issues. We've heard all about them, all that shit. Not charging properly, the alternator power, overheating batteries, losing oil, engine fucking oil. Why are they losing engine oil? There's been issues with the fucking shaft. Can you believe it? Always the fucking shaft with these BMWs. So what's happened is we've had leaky shafts, a bit like my shaft, it's a bit leaky too. But what's happened is maybe they've overfilled these shafts with oil. When these bikes are showing up to dealers, all of them, they check when they were built, and if they were built between a specific time, they just dump the oil in the shaft. Brand new units, they dump the oil and put some new oil in it. Now, I don't know if it's new oil, different oils, so the older oil they were using was no good, or it was just an overfill problem and that's why the shafts were bursting or leaking. So maybe it's just an overfill issue. So anyway, forged wheels. The 1300 I want, and I'm still undecided. I gotta say, the more issues that just turn up, I don't know, man. I don't know about getting that 1300. Might wait for the GSA. You got to wait for the GSA at this moment. I mean, there's too many fucking issues. But anyway, forged wheels. The new 1300 GS, one of the best things about it is those forged enduro wheels, like 1.8 kilos lighter than the spoke wheels on the 1300 GS, and those things squeak. When you pull up, something happens with those forged wheels and they start squeaking. What could be fucking squeaking? I don't know, but they make some sort of noise when you pull up. High speed instabilities, you know, I've seen people mention this. I haven't had an issue with it, but yeah, whatever. Rattling engines, noisy engines. Now, they all sound like a bit of old farm equipment, you know, box of engines, but the 1300 is like next level old farm equipment sounding, right? So what's happened with some of these noisy motors is they've changed the timing chain tensioner. So they've changed that out, and one of the persons said on the forums that it was a bit quieter for a little bit and then it went noisy again. So these timing chains, they've had issues with these BMWs, but the new one is like fucking rattle city, and it's, you know, something to do with, because they've made everything so compact and on top of each other, you know, something's got to give, right? You know, now it's got asymmetrical cam chains, and the cam timing thing runs the opposite way or something, and it's only got 2 bearings instead of 3, and there's a lot of reasons for this, but at the end of the day, fuck man, they sound like they sound really bad. Suspension failures, ride height failures, that's just, you know, part of the, you know, adaptive suspension. They said they fixed it with software, but someone said they got the new software and still it was getting stuck. They weren't getting the alert anymore, but it was still getting stuck in high position or whatever. So maybe they've just suppressed the warnings, right? Paint issues, the orange peel issue on the paint, and just, you know, on the corners being a bit thin, the paint, I've seen that. Yeah, the orange peel's a thing with BMW paint. I don't know why they can't get that right. Cruise control fucking issues. Cruise control not active. What the fuck? Cruise control. That's the thing, right? Adaptive cruise control. It's going to be safe. This thing is why I'm going to get this 1300 GS. It's going to make things a lot safer, and fuck, it doesn't fucking work. Comes up with errors and you're going to trust it? Fuck no. I don't want that adaptive cruise control on this bike, at least anyway. Other issues been raised, you know, the passengers aren't as comfortable, etc. Luggage issues, we know the luggage issues. You're waiting for top box and that. Seat issues, the locking barrel on the seat, locked. They snapped and fucking doesn't work. That connected ride app bullshit, or whatever fucking proprietary crap they give you. That connected BMW stuff is absolute fucking garbage. It's absolute junk. Why don't they give us like CarPlay, Apple CarPlay or something like that, or Android Auto? This fucking shit they're trying to give us, this proprietary shit, and they actually make you pay for that shit. And it's fucking garbage. Some other issues have been raised with wear and tear and durability. Are these things good? I actually saw a 1000 PS video actually just last night, and they showed it after 7,000 Ks. By the way, this is 8,000 Ks, okay? I have ridden this on-road, off-road, through the worst fucking rain conditions ever. I could not fucking see 2 foot in front of me. The rain was everywhere, fog everywhere. I was using the GPS to guide me. I couldn't even fucking see the road. I've ridden through all that shit, and look, I haven't done mega miles off-road, but this thing is in showroom condition. It really is. Just, you know, a bit on the shaft, always the shaft, right? The paint on the shaft at the back probably needs a bit of a buff up, but other than that, this is like showroom condition. The 7,000 kilometer GS you saw on the 1000 PS, it looks very fucking second hand. The wear and tear, the scratches on the plastics, the fucking corrosion, the fucking build quality, wires for the fucking indicators, it looks fucking junk. Even like these probes, these fucking stupid probe things, these wires on these fucking, you know, whatever probes they are for fucking measuring the oxygen or whatever the fuck it is, that bullshit EPA shit. Those things, they just look like a dog's breakfast. The build quality is not as good as this bike, okay? And it certainly looks like they're not going to stand the test of time there. You know, the way they've made things cheaper, like the pressed steel frame, the cheap-ass fucking aluminium subframe looks like it's worn out, the plastics are scratched, it just looks really bad. Go see that 1000 PS video. It was only 7,000 Ks on that bike, can you believe it? Showroom condition, here's 8,000 Ks. Now, it doesn't end there. I've actually got another fucking 4 pages over there, but hot off the press, a fucking new one, right? A new one, just come out last night. The on-off switch, not fucking waterproof. I don't know which one they're talking about, the fucking kill switch or the actual on-off switch, but they're replacing them, and it hasn't been the first one. Not fucking waterproof. What the fuck? They got this B-grade switch gear that's not even illuminated, and it's not even fucking waterproof, it doesn't seem. They're replacing it. Fuck! And yes, hot off the press, 1300 GS owners are reporting that the shaft is more clunkier than the 1250 GS that they used to own. Shaft issue. All this fucking other shit. And there's one more thing I want to talk about. And actually 1000 PS brought this up, and actually Neves brought this up. He was the first one to sort of canvass this idea, and he was talking about the motor in the 1250 GS just being better. And what he was saying, it was just mellower, softer, and it was a nicer engine than the 1300 GS. Now, the 1300 GS goes a bit harder. There's no doubt there. The throttle mapping is just wow. It is more sports touring. But it wasn't only Neves saying he liked the 1250 GS motor better. 1000 PS described the motor as not wanting to stay in the higher gears as much as the 1250 does. It always sort of wants to be dropped down a gear. Well, you know, you're going 60 kilometers an hour, it wants to stay in third instead of fourth or fifth, right? It just feels like it wants to stay in the lower gear. The way I describe this is, the difference between the motors is, this feels like, because of its longer stroke, it feels like a lumpier, lazier, sort of more mellow, just softer motor. It's a nicer motor just to lug around in. Now, you can rev it out and get some great performance out of this thing. Don't worry there, it still fucking performs. But really, it's at its best just cruising around. It likes to stay there, it doesn't matter, it just cruises. It, you know, no complaints. With the 1300 GS, it picks up just as low in the RPM as this, maybe a fraction before this, like maybe 1900 it starts to pick up, and this picks up at 2000 RPM. But with the 1300 GS, it wants to go, right? The motor just likes to go. It doesn't like to be stuck at a sort of constant low speed. It sort of wants to pick up, or it wants to engine brake hard. It's one or the other, right? It doesn't like to sort of just lug around lumpy like this one. That's the way I'll describe it. You know, this is more for a touring bike, this motor, more for a cruisy sort of bike. And you know, the 1300 GS sort of belongs more in a sports bike, but then you compare it to the MultiStrada and it doesn't seem so sporty. So in the sweet spot, or you're thinking, well, it's in no man's land. You take the choice there. And it is a choice, right? 1250 GS, 1300 GS. And I'm actually thinking maybe the 1300, as much as I would want one, I don't think so. Even the GSA, imagine the GSA comes out and it's got the same motor. It might be bigger, it might have a bigger tank, but if it's got the same motor and it's mapped the same way, hopefully it's a 1400 GS and they've added like a longer stroke to it rather than boring it out, because we just want more of that lumpy motor back, all right? That more cruisy, lumpy motor. You know, a motor that's just a bit more mellow and nicer to ride. It's nice on the daily. You know, the 1300's busy. It wants to, it's a busy bee. It's, come on, give it to me, give it to me. The motor in this bike is just fucking chill out, dude. Just fucking clock up those Ks, chill out, and you know, you can have a fucking wick of the throttle if you want. I've got the performance there for you when you want it, but hey, just fucking chill. You got another fucking 500 kilometers to go. You don't want to be a fucking busy bee, you know? So there's a lot more to come. I've got fucking more to come on the 1300 and the 1300 GSA, or 1400 hopefully, and more stuff to come, more reviews to come. They're going to be coming thick and fast now. I'm going to have the Royal Enfield in, and cannot wait. So let me tell you a story about a man from the old Blighty, England, and he's got a YouTube channel, and guess what? He's got a 1300 GS, and this guy, I think he's called European Tours, Life's a Ride or something. I'll leave a link in the description to this bloke, a legend. I mean, you gotta love this guy. He makes a video moaning about people moaning about the 1300 GS. That's just epic. This guy got so used to all those alerts popping up, this and that problem, suspension this, suspension that, pop-up after pop-up, that he just kept on swiping them away, or using that round thing to swipe them away. And he got that desensitized to him that actually when it said, oh, the key's out of range, he actually rode into Bike Shed, I think it's called, in London. He rode down there and actually forgot to take his key. But because the pop-ups come up so often, he just swipes them away, or whatever, uses that round thing to do it. And yeah, He left his keys at home and had to catch a cab home. And I also went out with the GS boys, yeah! I went out with the GS Boomer boys, and I've got to say, what blokes, top blokes, I've got to say, excellent blokes. Now, the good thing about going out with the BM boys is, because of the demographic, they actually have, you know, like first aid and stuff like that, but they also always have a proctologist coming with them. Yes, men's health, it's important, and you get a free prostate check when you go out with the BMW boys. Awesome. I did actually tell them I'm actually not 50 years old, but I'm always up for an old school prostate check. And they actually did assure me that the third time I actually went back for the prostate check that yes, it's all good, and it's better to be safe than sorry. Now, I actually really like the 1300 GS. It's a really awesome bike, and I'm sort of still on the fence whether I should get one or not, but all these concerning things, I just got to take breath and really think it through before I pull the trigger. And 1250 GS, every time I think, oh, maybe I like the latest new stuff, maybe I'm done with the 1250 GS, every time I think I'm out, it just pulls me back in. Man, it's hot. And let me tell you, in no uncertain terms, I think the 1250 GS is still, well, it's still got claims to be the GOAT. What? I got a Prince Albert, and